just recently, Gaijin Entertainment announced that its latest title, Age of Water, should be releasing in January of 2024. And it's got me super excited. Age of Water is a game that I've only just recently become aware of, and since the first time I saw its trailer, I've been doing a bit of digging. What I found is a serious lack of information. Like, for some reason, this game has flown very far underneath the internet's radar, and there are really only a few creators out there providing any coverage to it. And to be honest, I don't really understand why. It's not like Gaijin is a small publisher. I mean, hell, they created one of the largest advertised games in 2023, that being World of Warships. Oh, so I guess I just answered my own question. With all the funding going to that, there was probably none left for Age of Water. Well, hopefully today I can give some free publicity and show all of you watching right now what we can expect from this new open-world Sandbox MMO. Just to get started, let's answer the basic question. What is Age of Water? Well, Age of Water is a sandbox open-world MMO set in a post-apocalyptic world completely covered by water. And before we move on, let's ask ourselves, how many times have we heard open-world sandbox MMO this year? Quite a lot. I guess people just don't have any fresh ideas for games anymore. Anyways, moving on, the game is pretty generic. It features a lot of the same playstyles that you would be used to if you've played Rust or Raft or maybe even Sea of Thieves. And really, Age of Water kind of feels like they all got drunk together one night and made a bastard child. But the game does do a few things that make it stand out for me. None which are revolutionary, of course, but all are enough to intrigue me to at least give this game the time of day for a video. The first of those things being the art style and vibe that Age of Water puts out. It's very Fallout punky, but like set in a futuristic past. You know, like the old 50s and 40s songs while being fantasy steampunk and everybody's just trying to do their best to get by? Yeah, like that. I like that. It's kind of going against the grain for what most games are taking nowadays. Most games are going for either a fantasy medieval setting or a very whimsical fantasy kind of like poly vibe. So this will be a nice variety in the worlds we immerse ourselves into. Also, most games within the sandbox genre tend to be a bit too sandboxy and sometimes only cater to people who are super hardcore about only playing one game for the rest of the time. An example to help illustrate this is like, think of anyone you know who plays Rust. Now think about what else that person plays. Yeah, see, exactly. Age of Water kind of takes us away from that mindset. The experience looks like it's going to be a bit more guided through a small campaign and quests around the world. That way, if you're for some reason the person who plays an MMO as a solo player, you now have something to do all by yourself. But really, this just gives everyone who jumps in a sense of direction with what to do or how to play the game. And I really think that's critical for most players who are more on the casual side of things. I also think that this game's playstyle isn't going to require your full attention. You could honestly probably get away with a few hours a week and still be relevant. That way, if your friend invites you to your 30th playthrough of Baldur's Gate 3, you can pause over here and come back in a week or two. But that's just a bit of speculation. Who knows what will really be released? If it releases as most games have since the age of early access, we'll probably just get a half-baked load of garbage. But I'm being optimistic about this one. Now, let's also talk about the gameplay. Again, not really much info here, but from what I've been able to piece together, it looks like the main objective of this game is to simply get bigger, get richer, and get better. You know, like the classic American dream. You start out in a small dinghy that you can hardly call a boat, and are quickly introduced to your first NPC who starts you down a line of quests. Now, like I said before, it's my understanding that the main point of these quests is to just help you get started. You know, show you the mechanics of the game, where people are at, and how to click the left mouse button at little red dots that you want to sync. But I think these quests also start you down a little lore path that gives a slight campaign to the world. Now, I don't really know too much more about it than that, like how long is it, or if it's fun, or if it's mandatory, but regardless, it's there. Then, once you do a few quests and meet a few people, you're finally cut loose into the open world to do as you please. And for those of you who haven't been paying attention because you're asleep right now and your Xbox just autoplayed this is the sandbox part of the open world sandbox MMO genre. The main goal at this point is to go around, loot anything you see, and start upgrading yourself. From some beta footage I've reviewed, it looks like there are plenty of remaining skyscrapers and mountain peaks to explore as you drive around the world. And apparently, from what the devs say, any of these are claimable as your own. Now, to me, that sounds like a pretty tall order. I'd be really interested in seeing if they really mean that literally any landmass that's not an NPC area can be claimed by you. I would kind of honestly feel like maybe some areas might not fall into that option, but nonetheless, once you have a base established, there are many different upgrades and crafting options opened up to you. And from my understanding, this is when you've officially started playing the game. If I were you, I would suggest grinding this part a little bit harder than you might have otherwise, because believe it or not, Age of Water has PvP. It's not really clear with the lack of information that's out there how PvP plans to truly work, but if I was able to take a stab at it, I would think it's pretty simple. If you're out and about in a ship and you come across a random player, well, then these social experiments begin. Are you going to shoot them first to get the upper hand? Or are they going to trick you into thinking they're AFK and then rush you for all you have? Or are the two of you just going to ignore each other because you've both got too much to risk it all? Regardless, when the fighting inevitably starts, you're going to be in a battle of attrition of essentially who's stronger. From what I've seen, there's no real way to block attacks or anything. It's more like a shoot first, die first kind of gameplay that you might find in Call of Duty. I think really you're just hoping that the little dinghy in front of you isn't secretly loaded with 1,000 tons of bald eagle screaming American nuclear firepower. All jokes aside, the combat does look a little bit basic, but I don't really mind. Sometimes it's fun to just shoot around, and who knows, I could be wrong about this and they released the game with some super cool multi-ability combat phase. But I have a pretty good feeling that if you've played World of Warships, then you've probably played Age of Water. Now, something else I saw is that bases can be attacked or defended. What I don't know is what happens if you win or lose. But if I was speculating, I would say that you probably earn the loot that's inside or gain control over the base. But I honestly have no fucking idea, so take that as you will. Now, there is at least one thing that I've been able to actually find out, and that's that there is a whole slew of different weird or odd weapons that you can outfit your base or boats with. Just to name a few, I've seen basic machine guns, torpedoes, mortars, flamethrowers, etc. So I'm sure there's multiple builds and multiple ways to make combat a little bit more fun than what it looks on the surface, but at the end of the day, I think it's all going to be a good time. With all that said, the other main objective of the game is crafting, and what seems like a pretty in-depth leveling / upgrade system. In the beta announcement trailer, we can see that they are adding what appears to be different modules to their base, and also a skills page that shows multiple NPCs or players and their relative skills and abilities with a certain technology. So it seems like the progression of the game may not be dictated by just yourself or your friends alone, rather the NPCs who are in the game with you. We can also see a warehouse tab, which is likely storage, and if I had to guess, is probably behind a microtransaction there for more of it. A production tab, that probably means that certain buildings are on a time-based production system, like Clash of Clans maybe, which again, if I had to guess, is probably behind a microtransaction. And a shipyard tab, which makes me think that you can have more than one ship, which again, if I had to guess, is probably behind a microtransaction that allows you to have more of them. And then lastly, we have a store tab, which is probably full of useless cosmetics or speed buffs or anything else that you can find in an in-game store. Listen, I'm not bringing these microtransactions just out of my ass, right? This game is being developed by the same people who made War Thunder. So what do we really expect? The game is coming out in Q1 of 2024, and we live in an age where microtransactions on half-finished games are king. And like I said at the beginning of the video, because I don't have the most information about this game yet, there are some questions that I would really love to have answered. If you know, then please let me know in the comments. The first question I have is the world a fixed map, or is it procedurally generated? The reason I ask this is because I hope it is a fixed world. I want the servers to run out of space for hideouts, so we're all forced to take some over. And also, how large is the world? Are we talking 5 minutes west and you're at the end? Or is it like a Starfield level of scale where you can fly for 6 hours and then run into a JPEG of Pluto? And if we are running into JPEGs, is there going to be fast travel? Because there's nothing worse than getting to that JPEG and then having to take the drive of shame all the way home. Is there going to be ammo crafting? Or are we just going to be in a world where ammo shits itself into the deck of our boats as we need it? And also, how many different material types are there? My biggest peeve about Raft was that the whole game was just about catching leaves and plastic and rocks. I would really love to see some rare items like plutonium or maybe fucking SpongeBob's house. And then lastly, my only real concern about this game is how MMO will this really feel? Because here's the deal, so many games slap MMO on their genre tags because it's popular to do so, but then you get into the game and realize that you're passing by one person every 10 minutes, and that's not an MMO. So I'm concerned that because this game so far hasn't been the most popular, that they'll struggle to fill servers, but that's just something we'll have to wait and see. Who knows, maybe Asmongold will catch word of this game, make 2 reaction videos about it, and then it's nominated for Best Indie Game of the Year. I know I've said a lot about nothing here, and if you've made it this far, then I appreciate you. Some of you might be thinking that it sounds like I'm not wanting to play the game, but I'm actually super excited. I just have my expectations set somewhere that if the game doesn't deliver, I'm not going to be super bummed about it. I have zero reason to believe that this won't be a good game. It looks like a good time, and I'm sure it will be. When the game launches next year, I'll be playing through it. So if you're interested in seeing that, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out. Anyways, that's it for this video. I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you on the next one.